thanks to all of you for being here this morning. This is a special day in the Turner College. I am Linda Hadley, and I am the Dean of the Turner College of Business, and welcome to our Executive Speaker Series. We put on this event. We have 3 to 4 lectures each semester, and we bring in executives or entrepreneurs, and it's always a real special treat when we can bring in one that is one of our own, an alumnus of Columbus State University. So we are really, really thrilled this morning. We say that we put on this series so that we bring the boardroom into the classroom, and it's just really special when we have someone that we can brag on and say, this is someone who graduated from Columbus State University. And so for the students here, this is someone who sat exactly where you're sitting. Our speaker today is Joel Eagle. He is a graduate of the Turner College. He received a BBA and an MBA from here at the Turner College. Today, he is the Senior Director of Technology and Architecture at McDonald's Corporation. He is at the home office in Chicago and traveled to Columbus to be here to speak with us. And he has family in the audience that I will allow him to introduce. He has sort of a rock star following. There were other people who called and said, he's coming, we'd like to be here, and we invited some others. But I really would like to acknowledge Jack Pizzold, who is the local franchisor of McDonald's. And he is here with 2 of his colleagues. And thank you all so much for being here. Thank you. We're excited about what he's going to talk about. He's going to talk about embracing change and recognizing opportunity. And I won't take any more of his time, but to say to you that Joel was a non-traditional student. He mentioned to me that he started his undergraduate degree in 1985, and he stepped out several times, I think he said, to make money and get a lot of experience. And he didn't get his undergraduate degree, though, until 2002, and then he got his master's in 2004. And boy, what you've done since 2004. But this morning, Joel Eagle.
Thank you. So thank you for that introduction. I don't think Rockstar might be pushing it a little bit, but it's good to be here. I'm glad all you came out to hear me speak. I would like to acknowledge some family that I have in the audience. I have my mother, my stepdad, and one of my 3 brothers in the audience, and 2 sisters that are not here as well. And Counselor Judy Thomas is my favorite aunt. She's joining us today as well for City Council. So I thought to myself when I was thinking, and bear with me for a little bit, I have getting over a little bit of a throat issue. I picked up some bug in Singapore about 2 weeks ago. I'm over it, so it's not contagious, but I had to loosen the tie a little bit to speak. But I thought to myself, what can I tell a group of students, and I'm addressing the students here, so all of you with life experience, we're not talking to you yet, we're just talking to students here. What could I tell you today that would resonate with you or make some difference or have some sort of actionable thing that you would think about when you left? And I thought about all the great quotes in the world, and I thought about work and all the things you get to do. And the thing that came to me was I was talking to my brother, another brother, last night, and he reminded me of a great quote from Rodney Dangerfield in the movie Back to School, right? He was giving the commencement speech to seniors, and he said, "Don't go, stay here." This is as good as it gets, right? So I thought that was. Now I think back on that thing, yeah, that'd be kind of good to hang out in school for a while. But we'll go through a little bit of my journey as to why I left school, to make money, and at that time, and then come back to school and how that opportunity presented itself. The thing that I would think that I would impart on students is, you make your life more than you probably realize. You have more control over what happens to you than you probably realize you do, especially as students facing whether you're tough tuition or professors that happen to be particularly difficult, that sort of stuff. And thinking about your career and what you might do, and thinking that by this age you have to have it all figured out and know where you're going. You don't. Pardon me for a second. But it's important that you understand you have the highest level of control over what's happening in your life right now, probably more so than you've ever had, and probably more so than you ever will. And that's the thing that you need to recognize, so that when you see an opportunity to do something, to embrace some change, if you will, that's happening out there, learn to recognize that. Learn to recognize these opportunities that are yours to take, because opportunity will find you. I know you have to go out and find it. You're thinking about pounding the pavement, writing your resume, and putting in applications and things like that. I'll tell you, I haven't provided an application for a job or tried to look for a job since probably 1985, right? I haven't tried, jobs found me, right? And I'm going to go a little bit about how that happened. It didn't happen by all of just me. I'm not the best person in the world for that. But there was a lot of luck involved. But it was around recognizing I want that opportunity. It means a lot of change. It means some bold moves. But I wanted to take that opportunity to go experience whatever it is that was on offer. And we'll go through some of that. So today I'll go a little bit on what this journey looks like, sort of connect the dots from CSU. I won't go all the way back to 1985, but we'll start with the sort of my real jobs, if you will, from a career perspective, and go through some of that and do the path of that. And then I think at the end there's Q&A. There's some time left over at the end for Q&A, but do think of questions. I'm going to ask you at the end of this questions. You're going to stare at me for a minute. And I was told by one of my CSU professors a long time ago that a study was done, might have been Harvard or Yale, around college professors asking students for questions. And a college professor will wait 19 seconds on average for you to respond before he just decides to move on. And the average student takes 36 seconds to generate a question in their mind. So it's a missed opportunity. So go ahead and start thinking about what you might want to know. And I'm happy to answer all of your questions. I will tell you, like I tell the staff that works for me, if I know something and I can tell you, I will. If I know something you asked for and I'm not supposed to tell you, I'll tell you. I know it and I'm not supposed to tell you. So you don't leave it hanging out there. And I'll also tell you I don't know. And I don't know is usually the answer to most of the questions I get asked. So that's good. Oh, jumped ahead. So circa 1993. So I've been to, let's say, I graduated high school in 1985, Baker High School. For those of you that might know that name way back in the day, I went to Baker High School. Baker Lions go. I understand it's burned down now. But
it's a Walmart.
Yeah, it's a Walmart, right? So I went to Baker. I graduated Baker High School. I started Columbus College in the fall of '85, went straight to school. I had Dr. Kit Lumley at the time. I think I walked in, it was a calculus class. You put this test on the board. It was written down in chalk. I don't know if you guys know what that is anymore, but chalk on a board. And she wrote down these math questions. They were trig and geometry and some basic algebra stuff. And she told the students, you came in and she had blank paper there and some pencils. And you walked in, first day of class, this was my very first college class. I just got, university, She says, you need to answer these problems. And if you can't, tomorrow is drop, right? So if you can't do this, because we're not going to do remedial, we're not going back, we're not, we're moving forward. This is our class, what we're doing, right? And I'm looking around going, oh my God, I took that CLEP class for trig, and I just remembered I took the algebra class, and so I did all right, and I got through it and went through calculus, and luckily rode that curve to a B in Kit Lumley's class. That was a great experience, but it gave me that, wow, well, there's a different expectation to coming to CSU and coming to this particular class than there was, let's say, at Baker High School, right, on what it took to get through that. So that was an eye-opener thing for me at the moment. From that moment forward, I thought of college as a different thing, a different opportunity. It was mine to seize. It was no longer high school because you have to. It was college because you want to, right, from that moment forward. But, you learn some things. You learn some skills. Jobs are out there. There's money to be made. I went and got Microsoft certifications, and back in the day, it was called Novell. It was a network operating system certification, Cisco certifications, and things like that. And I built my career on, if I was the guy that knew how to do something and knew how to do it better than anybody else, that was my value. That is what I traded for money, and that's how I got myself value. And I did that for quite some time, and it worked really well for a number of years. I did contract work for Aflac, Total Systems, what was then Doctors Hospital, Columbus Regional. I was all over the place, and doing work for folks and doing consulting work. And it was great for a while. Made a little money, got to buy a car. That was interesting, got to do fun stuff. But there came a time in my career when I was working for Blue Cross in around 1993, got to work there, that it dawned on me that what I know made me a bit indispensable. And at first it was great. I was the guy that ran the network, and let's face it, at that time, Blue Cross Blue Shield didn't really know what a network was. So that was great. But that means that when the phone rings at 3 o'clock in the morning that there's a problem, you're the only person that can answer the question. So it means you get every 3 o'clock in the morning phone call. You get every call around fixing something that happens to be in the data center. And I thought for a while, there's a guy that I'm working for that gets paid more than I do who's sleeping at night. Maybe being the smartest, trying to be, not being, but trying to be the smartest guy in the room when it comes to a particular technology might not be the smartest thing to do in terms of what I'll get into in a minute, work-life integration. as opposed to balance. And I'll get that in a second. So anyway, I started my career at Blue Cross, and I thought to myself, man, I'm working hard. If you went into the computer room, and if you guys seen pictures of servers and racks, stacked up and all that, I put them all in there. I'm not kidding. Every one of them that was there, I physically put there. Not the old mainframe guys. They actually joked with me one day and looked at my servers and said, what's that computer going to be when it grows up? That kind of thing. Little did they know that, like a virus, we took over the world, right? We just moved that mainframe off to the corner and took over. Fun stuff. So I'm working hard. I'm the guy. I'm trying to be the indispensable person. I'm trying to impress my bosses. I remember one boss came to me and he said, when this WellPoint thing happened, I think most of you probably know who WellPoint is. Does anybody not know WellPoint or Anthem? So they bought Blue Cross Blue Shield. They were going around the country buying them up. They were headquartered out of California. And they were buying up Blue Cross Blue Shields, trying to compete with the Aetnas and the Cigna. So the idea was that Blue Cross Blue Shield were having a tough time on individually competing with the larger national chains and losing out market share and that sort of stuff. So WellPoint had this idea they'd go around and buy them all up. We'd consolidate them. And they told the government, our government, that it's a good idea if you let us do this, because if we do this, we'll have this amazing database of information about healthcare and about treatment and what's the efficacy of different programs, and we can give back to the citizens or to the government a lot of information about healthcare and how it works. So off they went. There was a big bunch of mergers that happened, and WellPoint finally merged with Anthem. It's headquartered out of Indiana. Anyway, it became the largest health insurer in America. So 1 out of 8 people carry one of their cards. You carry a Blue Cross Blue Shield of Georgia, it's theirs. California, it's theirs. Virginia, it's theirs. That sort of thing. So in so doing, though, they bought the company. So they got their own IT guys. They got their own smart people. They got their own people that are like me that are doing that. And while I was telling you about trying to recognize that I want to be the guy that gets to sleep at night, I also recognize that no matter how hard I try, there's always somebody that's going to know more about a particular thing than I do. There's always going to be the next young person that understands technology and is going to run up here and be better than I am, or willing to put more hours in than I was, something like that. Around that time, the management evaporated between myself and a division vice president. Now, this is one of those moments in life where at first you're worried about your job, they're going to replace you, you're worried about really how you're going to pay your mortgage payment, something like that. And I looked at it and said, I now get to report, this lowly server jockey guy gets to report directly to a division vice president. His budget was around $400 million. That's a lot for an IT budget, just if you don't think $400 million is a lot. From an IT perspective, that's a lot. Think about that next time you wonder why your care costs so much, right? And why insurance costs so much. $400 million on IT. So anyway, he had no time for me. He didn't really, he didn't barely know who I was. But I got to go when he went to a staff meeting. I got to go because I'm staff. I didn't get to sit at the table. I got to sit in the chair that's on the sort of the side of the room. But boy, did I get to learn. Right? Did I get to learn how politics work? How if you run a budget of $400 million, who comes calling looking for that $400 million? Who is it in the company that you compete with for that money? And who are the external people that come in and want some of that money? And I just got to learn. So about 2 years go by and I'm working for this person and he never did a review for me. The policy is you have to do a formal review and tell you how you're doing every year. He couldn't be bothered with me. He's not done anything for somebody that's staff like that. And truthfully, his review was written by his staff, right? That sort of thing. I mean, they wrote it for him and he presented all his accomplishments. So he gets a call from HR one day and says, look, you have to talk to this guy. I know you don't know who he is, but you have to at least talk to him. And he knew who I was. So he calls me in his office and he says, what do you do? I'm like, well, I do the server stuff in the computer room and I'm, da-da-da-da-da. He says, well, that's not all that useful to me. Right? He goes, I can buy that, I can get that, whatever I want to do. He goes, what else can you do? Where'd you graduate from? What school did you go to? Went to CSU, hadn't graduated CSU. Well, that's a problem. You got to do that right away. You got to go back to school. You're useless to me if you don't have an education. Fine. So he agrees to pay for it. Actually, they actually paid for my to come back and pay for my tuition as undergrad. So I come back. I get my undergrad. I'm working at this, and he's being a little more open to me. He's sort of letting me be, I'd say, he called it a chief of staff. I refer to it as a gopher job, which is do whatever he says, right? I mean, if he told me that his biggest problem today was his car needed to be washed and he can't figure out how to get his car washed, we'd figure out how to get his car washed. I don't know that I would actually wash his car, although I would. He drove a really nice car. But I wouldn't, whatever the problem, I'm being a little bit facetious here, but whatever the problem was he needed to make sure that it wasn't part of something he needed to worry about, he kind of delegated to me. Again, learning the whole time, right? Thinking about how this guy operates, how the interplay between the up and comers, sort of the middle management operated with him and that sort of stuff. But the fact that I got to be around him due to all this turmoil and change that happened enabled me to learn a lot, enabled me to, gave me the impetus to come back to school. I came back, right? I graduated. That was a great experience, doing it as a working person, working 9-10 hours a day and coming to school. That was interesting. CSU was at that time. I'm sure it is today, but at that time it was very minimal to flexible schedules for people who worked and came to school and things like that. So it was a good opportunity. So I come back and I graduate, and he says, yeah, you graduated, but if you want to go anywhere, you're going to need an MBA. An MBA for him was check the box, right? Like, you got to check the box and have an MBA. It's right down the street. Here's CSU. And, do my thing, get sponsors, come back, go through MBA. I can tell you all kinds of stories about how fun that was. I recommend if you're considering graduate school, here's what I'll tell you. It doesn't get easier to go to graduate school later in life. If you have the opportunity to go, right? Take that opportunity now. You'd be amazed at the doors that'll open for you just knowing you have that. And especially at CSU, since it's an accredited business school. It matters that it's an accredited business school, right? So anyway, I would encourage you to go. So he encourages me to go, and I go to the MBA thing, and I start learning business acumen. And the more I learn about business acumen, the more I can translate what these guys are talking about. Because even though these guys ran big IT divisions, they were not talking IT stuff. They talked IT projects. They talked deployment, where we're getting technology in here. But it was all about the finances. It was all about aligning to business objectives. It wasn't about technology for technology's sake. Some people, right, like me, I would like to put in the newest, coolest thing. But for him, it was about if I spend $1 on technology, that dollar has to be taken from somebody who wants to buy CubeSpace or somebody who wants to buy place an ad somewhere, right? The same dollar, you compete for that. So that means that the dollar spent on technology must be worth more than the dollar I'm going to spend on advertising. That doesn't mean we don't spend on advertising, but I think you get my point. You compete for the resources inside. Companies have, and I'm sure you know this now as business students, an internal rate of return that they try to get on the dollars they invest. So that the conversations at that level were all about meeting that internal rate of return, unless it was something that was regulatory required or some external force forced us to spend the money, and then it was a no-brainer. But the consideration of why you spend the money on technology was what sunk in with me. And going through graduating, I should mention this, the decision to come back, not as a computer science graduate or major, but to come back as a business major was all about the exposure I got to those folks running IT as part of the business, right? It was no longer about, do you know how to code something to make something happen? It was about what do you ask those coders to do? What do you need from your business to ask IT to do for you? And that was a conversation I wanted to be in. So with that, WellPoint swallows Blue Cross. I get exposed to different levels of management. Most people are running around fearful for their job or upset about the change. We're going to change email systems, and everybody's upset because one's technically better than another. I learned quickly to get out of those kind of conversations, right? Think of everything you do in terms of outcomes, not output, not how much you do, but how much value you create from what you do. Is a different way of thinking about what you want to do and how you want to invest your money, specifically around IT in a business today. You'll learn as you go through in your career. IT is looked upon, and I can almost talk to our other colleagues that are here from McDonald's, is this big money pit cost thing, right? At worst case, you're just this expense. You're just someplace to spend a whole lot of money that's necessary. Best case scenario is you are an enabler and driver of the business objectives. That's what IT is supposed to do, right? So I worked for this executive. I worked with a number of people around Anthem. They're headquartered in California. So as things happen, times change, people take different jobs. One of the executives I worked closely with went to work for this company called Ingram Micro. If you don't know Ingram Micro, they are a global distribution company. They sell, actually they don't sell much, they broker stuff. So if you order an iPhone here in the United States, Ingram Micro runs Apple's warehouse and is going to ship it to you. Interestingly enough, in the United States, any Apple product you order, they're going to deliver it, except if you want it engraved in English. If you want an iPhone engraved with English, that comes from China. Not kidding, it really does. But so this executive goes to Ingram Micro, and there's a mess there. They've got this problem. They've got a supplier that does their IT, we call it ITO, IT outsourcing. The board at Ingram Micro is, I shouldn't say the board, we'll call them the C-suite, the CEO, CIO. Those folks are upset at this particular company. They're not delivering for them, et cetera. They did this outsourcing deal to save a bunch of money. They bought the brochure and they weren't getting the value. So they're back to this value conversation. So because of my work with Anthem, and I was part of a team that did an outsourcing deal with IBM in the neighborhood of about $1.7 billion. It's a pretty big deal to do with them. I was a small little part of that, but exposed to it. Went through the whole transition of employees being rebadged from one company to another. Again, lots of learning in that experience. Never a lot of fun, but at any rate, so this person knew what I did, had a good relationship. He calls me up one day and he says, you know, all that work you did with IBM, he's like, yes, yeah, I did that. You know, so he goes, I got a company here I need you to come fire. I need you to come to my company, run this division, and fire this company. Get rid of them. They're bad, get rid of them. I said, well, I don't really want to go work someplace to fire people and get bad. But that was located in Southern California. That job was Southern California. I'm living in Columbus, Georgia at the time, and that job was Southern California. And I thought, you know, I've been to Southern California a number of times. I kind of like it, right? I'm thinking it's good. I like Columbus. Nothing wrong with Columbus, but I want to experience this. So this is a moment where, you know, there's this opportunity. And the opportunity isn't just a job. Yes, it was a job. It was a nice job, and yes, it was going to pay well enough. But for me, you know, what's going to get me to move away from my family? What's going to get me to move to Southern California? It's not a job. It's going to be life experience. It's going to be something that I want to experience and integrate with my life that I want to go do, not just pay for a job and an opportunity, right? So I get hired as an IT operations director. You know, long story short, I move out there. I'm having a great time. In fact, I have a picture in a minute of me having a great time. And I set about assessing this company and doing the work of firing this organization. So like any organization, organizations aren't, as much as we get taught in school that corporations are people because they're legal entities, they're not, right? Organizations are the people that make them up, right? And I don't care where you go to work for, I don't care if it was Enron, MCI, or IBM, or wherever, there are good people in an organization. There are always good people in an organization. So I set about trying to figure out what the real problem was, why we weren't getting the value out of this organization. Where are the good people? Who could I work with in this organization to really understand it? At the time, Ingram Micro was also set about replacing their, what we call an ERP system. This is the big financial systems that companies use to make decisions. So when you do that in a company, again, I don't know what your level of experience is, but that's about $250, $300 million project. That's a huge undertaking. They were going to go with a company called SAP. So I'm looking at this effort of $250 million. I'm looking at this company that's not doing their servers and their help desk and all that they want to do. I'm thinking about what the company wants to do, and I'm thinking about what the outcome needs to be. If the outcome isn't firing a company, right? The outcome would be that whether we stay with this company or not, we get the services we need for that dollar we invest to get the return we need, right? That's the outcome. Knowing that, I set about working with this company. So long story short, we didn't fire them. We actually got to the point where we did a five-year renewal contract. That contract at the time was worth about $50 million a year. They did all of your typical IT towers, you know, mainframe, help desk, you know, desktop servers, all that fun stuff, database, all that stuff. And we ended up doing a renewal. We did that because we changed the way that company was aligned. The very first problem that I tried to identify to my boss when I got there was, you know, I'm going to paraphrase here, you know, we've met the enemy and the enemy is us, you know, that sort of thing. We as a company weren't leading that company correctly. We weren't asking them to do the right things. We were expecting that you came in with the brochure and said you do all these wonderful things. The CFO bought it just because he wanted to save money, knowing the CIO had to deliver on the promise, right? Well, the company, they brought him in and just let him sort of do their own thing without real leadership, right, to do that. And they didn't think about the transition of people being badged from one company to another and the animosity that happens and the things that you need to do. There was no care and feeding of what was going on. So I call it the blind leading the blind, right? That our company didn't know what they were doing, and we were upset that this other company couldn't do what we wanted them to do, even though we didn't know what we were doing, right? That sort of stuff. So we changed things like they had guys that were really smart. There was a mainframe guy. There was a server guy. There was a help desk guy. And I said, tell me what business process that you can think of in our objectives says mainframe, right? Not a one. Right? We ran our warehouse system on mainframe, the warehouse system that gets stuff out of Apple to you. Our warehouse system was run that way. We had a ERP system that was homegrown. We had a warehouse system. We had an e-commerce system. You could order stuff off the websites, that sort of stuff. And none of the IT stuff lined up to that. So the first thing we did was they said, let's stop doing that. Let's say, I want one of these techie guys, and we call them SDM, service delivery managers, and you're going to be ECP, e-commerce. And this other guy is going to be ERP. And this other guy is going to be warehouse management. And you're going to go to the staff meeting of the VPs that run those things from the business perspective. You're going to be adjunct staff. I go to the business and sell this idea, and they say, okay, fine, we'll try it. That alone, just connecting them to a business process that cut across all the IT towers, meant that no one could hide in their tower. A famous thing we would get these reports every month. Mainframe is up 100% of the time. They didn't tell you that no one could get to the mainframe half the time, but it was up and running in the computer room, right? But no one could get, the network was down, or something like that. Like, we're not doing that. What I want to know is my warehouse management system up and running? Is my ERP system up and running? Are my websites working, right? You put people in charge of that, and now that organization I was hired to fire was running through itself, fixing the problems because they were accountable for a business outcome, not an output of what their technology was. Changing that dramatically changed the way this company performed. It dramatically changed their relationship they had with Ingram Micro. And by the way, I'm not the genius that figured it all out. It just made sense to me. Why did it make sense to me? Because I'm sitting in a room with the guy in my previous job, spending a bunch of money, demonstrating me how you align IT to business objectives to be successful, right? And I have the acumen because I've been to school to figure out what these words mean, internal rate of return and things like that. So we changed it, right? So long story short, they got better. We renewed the contract. Everybody, the company, by the way, when I first got there, Xerox, it was ACS at the time, Xerox bought them. They didn't like me, right? At first, I was not the guy. They were not happy with me, and I was more of a, I call it just a will to succeed kind of guy. So I would just not accept failure. I would not accept, that somebody couldn't be where I wanted them to be when I wanted to do that, and I drove a few people nuts. There's been more than one occasion where, I got to be honest, where people called me up and said, listen, I see what you're trying to do. I'm not sure I can go on this journey with you. I don't know that I have the energy to do this, right? And I would say to them, just hang in there, right? There's a payoff here, do it. They're good people, right? So hang in there, we'll do this, and I would tone down a little bit, and delegate more and that kind of stuff. But so at the end of the day, I started off as their enemy. We ended up being, I turned them into heroes, if you will. They signed a new contract. Of course, all the salespeople loved me for that one. But even the guys that were the SDMs that had to fundamentally change the way they thought about the service they provide, do it differently today. So wonderful. So that led to the next opportunity. If I get to, this stuff. Sorry. Yeah. So I wanted to put this slide in here before I go on to the next thing. As I mentioned, I was a sort of wheel guy. So I got a couple of hobbies, right? Riding motorcycles is one. There you see one of my big bike, I call it, the cruiser bike. And I'm in Big Sur, California on Pacific Coast Highway. I've had the opportunity to traverse Pacific Coast Highway now 3 times. And one time, most memorable, was my stepdad, all the way from LA up into, well, you didn't actually go all the way to, you stopped at Eureka and we went on to Oregon or whatever it is and came back. Great ride, right? Great opportunity to do that. And this is me standing on this little whatever, goofing off, doing my Karate Kid, thing. Like, you guys know Karate Kid now because they remade it as a new movie, so you would have only seen the original. But, and that's me over there on the left. One of my first days when I got to California. That's La Jolla, California. So I'm just goofing off there. Another hobby that I have is photography. I like to go take photographers. Now, I have some nice photography equipment. I am not a great photographer. I'm that guy you see that can, has the latest and greatest thing and bumbles around, doesn't know how to use it. That'd be me. Because I thought the camera could make up for my deficiencies right around photography. But I did get the opportunity to go to Sequoia. I think it's Sequoia National Forest, Kings Canyon, Sequoia. So anywhere the sequoias are. If you've never seen sequoias, by the way, they only exist here in the United States. If you've never seen a sequoia, go. I think the largest and oldest tree there. For those of you from the South are going to hate this, but they named them all after the Civil War was over. We know who won the Civil War, so therefore the trees are named after Union generals, right? And the largest tree down there is called the General Sherman. Google it up if you want to. It's called the General Sherman tree, and it fell off. The lowest branch on that tree, just to give you an idea of the size, is 6 feet in diameter. That's the branch. Imagine the tree that's supporting this branch is tall enough for me to walk through, right? So anyway, I'm taking pictures of this particular tree one day, and when you go out shooting in nature, you want to shoot a bear, right? If you're name another animal you want to shoot more than a bear, other than a whale when you're whale watching, right? You see moose, you see deer, you see rabbit, bear. Somebody shouts bear, points in a direction, I look like National Geographic, right? I got the clothes, I got the vest, and I know enough about being in the woods that you'd never take food and all that sort of stuff. So anyway, I grabbed my camera, and again, remember I said my camera's looks like the real deal. I mean, I didn't have any lens envy, let's put that away. Lens is like that big, big camera. So I go running off after the bear, and I track this bear through the woods for about half an hour, and I'm thinking I'm going parallel to the bear, watching him do bear stuff. If you want to answer the old question about bear in the woods, yes. So this bear's doing bear stuff, right? I'm just enamored with the bear. What I don't realize is the bear and I are coming closer and closer together. But the bear's just doing his thing, and I'm looking around, and I'm alone with the bear, right? There's nobody around. I mean, these parks that we have, our national parks, if you don't go to them, some pretty lonely places, which is good, right? So anyway, long story short, I'm tracking this bear, and I finally come across, and this is actually a log. It's actually standing on a fallen branch. That's how big this stuff is, right? So I use this, I'm at one end of this log, and I use it as my tripod for my camera. I'm just sitting my camera down, using it to hold it still. And I must have shot 1,000 pictures of this bear. I'm on, super fast lens and all that kind of stuff. The bear walks up, gets on the end of the log, digs around looking for stuff in the log over like that, and then turns and looks at me. And he's doing his head back and forth, and he's not really approaching me, but he's looking at me, and I thought to myself, so now what, right? What's the bear want to do? I'm in the way. So I thought, it dawned on me that the log was like this, and it went across this path. And by now, I didn't realize that just around me was the actual path for people to walk on. So I had actually come all the way back to where people were. I just didn't know it at the time. And this bear is sitting on this log looking at me, and I'm thinking to myself, what's going on here? So I thought, maybe I'm in the bear's way. Maybe the bear just wants to get by, right? So I continue taking pictures for as long as I think the bears will allow, right, in terms of get agitated. And then I stop, take my camera, and you just stand there. There's that old phrase that if you get chased by a bear in the woods, you and your friend, you don't have to be faster than the bear. You have to be faster than your friend. I don't have any friends, right? I got my camera, so maybe I'll give the bear the camera. But anyway, so not having any food on me, and the thing about going in the woods is when you go to shoot wild animals, at least for me, and one of the lessons I learned is put on lots of cologne. Bears think we stink. They don't like us. They don't want to eat you if you smell like Ralph Lauren or whatever, right? So put on perfume, put on stuff, it's good. So anyway, I take my camera, I stand back, and the bear walks up to probably within about 3 feet of me. I can hear it, and sort of that grunt breath, and looks at me and then just bounds across and runs off, right? One of the greatest experiences I've ever had in terms of being out taking photography. And I've done some pretty cool, interesting shots while riding a motorcycle. No, this is before the GoPros, right? That were kind of interesting. But that one was probably, I put that up there because had I not gone to California, right, take that opportunity, and even though I want to be a photographer, I wouldn't be in places like this, right? This is not, to go here from my house, it was about a 5-hour drive. I mean, that's a weekend trip, from Southern California. This, I woke up it was a Sunday morning, and I said to myself, I was living in Irvine, it's in Orange County, California, just south of LA. And I said, I'm bored, what am I gonna do today? And I heard about this bridge called the Bixby Bridge. It's an archway bridge, been in lots of TV commercials, things like that. And I said, I'm just gonna go to Bixby Bridge. Well, from my house to that bridge and back is a 752-mile round trip. And I did that on a Sunday, and just for the hell of it. You can do that in California, right? You can go to you can literally in California during the wintertime, snow in the morning and surf in the afternoon. You can literally do this, right? So anyway, I just threw this up here to think about when people talk to you about work-life balance. Let me ask you a question. Well, first of all, I don't know what they're talking about. I don't know what they mean by work-life balance. I don't know what it means to put something on 2 scales like that. That seems to me to be a continuous thing. So I would ask you this: for those of you who go to church, do you do church-life balance? Do you put church on a scale and whatever else, your job on a scale and balance that? Probably. I don't know if you think of it that way. I wouldn't think of it that way, right? You think of it as integration, right? You think of it as, wait a minute, when I do these other extra or civic activities or church and like that, it's part of your life. Work should be part of your life. When you think about what opportunities you have out there, you're better off. You're going to be more successful, in my opinion, if you choose opportunities that align with the things that you want to do. So if you want new opportunities, you want new experiences, choose opportunities that give you that. If you hate new experiences, if you don't want to move, I know people that have born and raised, I'm related to them, never left Columbus or wherever they live, don't have a passport, never been anywhere. That's okay, but if you're that way, know that, right? And understand how that impacts your choices and opportunities in life, right? That sort of thing. So at any rate, I'll move off the me page and talk about this company Xerox. So I'm connecting the dots to how I got to where I am today. So Xerox is the company I told you about that I was hired to fire, didn't fire them. Ended up working well with them. So Xerox also has the McDonald's account. Xerox provides all these same services to McDonald's, and they're in trouble. And I got a call one day from one of the executives at Xerox I worked with, and he said, you know, I know that Ingram's going through changes. They've got a new CIO, regime change. Usually when that happens, it's about time to reassess if you've been here long enough, you know, your value and where you want to go. So they called me up and they said, we got this crazy German who just showed up as the global CTO for McDonald's. He was the CIO of Europe. He's now the global CTO for McDonald's, and they refer to him as the crazy German. And he said, this guy's looking to just make changes. He's looking to just fire us and get us out of here. He was the guy that complained about corporate services for a long time, and so corporate gave him the job. All right, so now it's put up or shut up, right? He was complaining for a while, now it's put up or shut up. First thing he wants to do is fire these guys. He had no love for this company. So they called me up and said, hey, you think you can do what you did at Ingram for us on the provider side for McDonald's? And I said, you know, I'm happy to help you. I'll go up there, you know, McDonald's. I'm thinking, whoa. I'm a technology guy. It's McDonald's, it's burgers. You know, Ray Kroc's famous saying is the only thing he wants to see on the counter is money and food, right? Food going out, money coming in. Run your business out of a shoebox, right? A cigar box. And I'm thinking, McDonald's, nah, I'm just not sure, right? At the time, I was courting with Disney and Nike, and then this McDonald's thing came about. Talk to Disney, you know, and if you're an IT person and you go to work for a company that's really good at IT, you know, think about this for a second. What is it you're going to do? If they're really good at what they do and they're you know, doing this, what exactly are you going to do more of the same, right? Or do you want a job where you can you can implement something, build something, create something, put your name on it, right? I'm the guy that wants to go to places that don't have something or something's broken. I want to do something with it. So Disney was it was sort of iffy for me. Nike, I mean, Nike's got technology down, right? I mean, they're probably, when it comes to marketing, I'm not sure there's anybody better than Nike, right? Celebrity endorsements and all that sort of stuff they do. So that's like, so I said, you know what? As a favor, I will go to McDonald's. I will talk to the crazy German as a favor to this one executive. So I go up there. He says, you know, great, just go interview with the guy, right? So fine, I go up there. I have to interview with a few other people before you get to the CTO guy. And unbeknownst to me, the instructions were, if you like him, these are senior directors and directors, if you like this guy Joel, go have him meet this guy Frank, the crazy German. I get through most of the day, they like me, they take me to meet the crazy German. The crazy German is inside a conference room, he's just ending a meeting, and I'm outside it, and this is the C-suite, you know, we call it Mahogany Row. And he's in there doing his thing, pontificating, and I can hear him. The woman that brought me over there goes in and says, hey, I want you to meet this guy that's from Xerox. And he says, I don't want to meet some guy from Xerox. I hear him say this, you know, outside the room. I'm thinking, great, I'll make my flight, no problem, you know, I'll go home. And then she says, but he came here from California. And he says, I don't want to meet with some surfer dude from California. I'm thinking, here's a guy who graduated Baylor High School, Columbus, Georgia, right? He's referred to as surfer dude. I'm like, I'll take it. You know, it's okay, I'm on my own. But hasn't met me yet. So long story short, she pleads with him. He agrees to give me 5 minutes of his precious time. We end up speaking 45 minutes. I miss my flight. Which is okay, I'm just sitting there talking through it. I missed my flight to come back home, you know, that sort of stuff, or go back to California. But we talked for 45 minutes. And I hit it off with this guy. And the reason I liked him was because he was willing, he didn't have the shackles, if you will, of the past. He didn't have to worry about, well, I built all this stuff and now I have to make what doesn't work. He was willing to just do tabula rasa, figure it out, right? And the agreement we made is, he said to me, we always have to deal in realities. In other words, no spin, just deal in realities. And the deal I made with him is, so here's what I'll tell you. If you ever decide that you don't want me to do what I'm doing, we don't have to go through some HR mess and you don't have to escalate someone. You need to utter one phrase to me. The phrase is, your services are no longer required. If you say that phrase, the whole phrase, not you're fired. If you tell me I'm fired, I'll just come back tomorrow, right, and see if you really meant it. If you say that phrase to me, I will hand you my badge, get my stuff, part friends, and off I go, right? That's the deal I've made with all my bosses. There's no need to go through a big drawn out episode of getting rid of me. You can get rid of me pretty quick. So he says, all right, I'm acceptable, right? I'm okay, I'm acceptable. So then Xerox tells me, he goes, wow, okay, you're acceptable. So you want to take a job? You want to go there? I'm like, yeah, not really. I live in Southern California. You see the picture of the bear? You know, you're in Chicago. It's freaking snow, right? What are you talking about? But they really want me to go. And so I'm on the fence. I'm not sure I want to go. McDonald's has a thing called an owner-operator convention every 2 years. It just so happens that they were having that convention, and this is 2010. They're having that convention, and so the guys from Xerox called me up and said, listen, we want to fly to Orlando and just go to the convention, hang out with Frank, and see what McDonald's is all about. So they fly me to this convention, and I got to tell you, I've been to some conventions in my life. I've been to a few. I've been to I've been to Oracle Open World, and I've been to Microsoft, and I've been to all the good ones with money and things like that. These boys know how to do a convention. I mean, it's almost 800,000, almost 1 million square feet of space, and it's all McDonald's. I'm told, I could be wrong, that it is the world's largest gathering of millionaires in one spot, because all these owner-operators are coming from all over the world that own, McDonald's, things like that are there. So it's, you and 15, 16,000 of your closest McDonald's friends. Elton John was there, and in 2010, anyway. So, or maybe he was 12. Anyway, so anyway, I go to this convention, I walk around, and I think to myself, I remember back when I thought about Blue Cross and that job and why I was looking at Aflac at the time and Total Systems and what gravitated me to Blue Cross. Well, Blue Cross didn't have a network. They needed somebody to put one in. They didn't have certain technology. They needed somebody to do that. Well, McDonald's was on the cusp of, they already started it, but on the cusp of really pushing technology into the restaurants. Things that drive inventory, things that drive a point of sale system and that sort of stuff. And technology in the corporate space, right? Enabling corporate employees to do more, examples. So they were in my mind starting the journey. So going to that convention convinced me to accept the assignment, long story short. But even then I said, you know what, I'll do 90, 180 days. I'll help you write a prescription for what it's worth. You can, take it up with a grain of salt, reorg the place, change people around, put the model in that we put in at Ingram Micro, and that's about it. Well, long story short, I stayed in that position, that consulting position for 2 years. So for 2 years, on Monday, I took the Monday night flight out of John Wayne Airport in Orange County. I flew to O'Hare, and on Friday night, I flew home. And I did that for 2 years. So I became intimate with some TSA agents. I became intimate with the hotel desk people. The night crew, because I would come in at night, so I would know the night crew, right? More than I would. People in the day didn't know who I was, but night crew knew who I was. See, it's interesting that whole realm of that. People used to ask me all the time. I would be in Chicago, and they would say, why do you do this? I'm like, one person asked me this. It was long about it was getting later in the year. It was probably around January. Like, why do you do this? I'm like, dude, look outside. When I go home, it's 75 degrees, palm trees swaying. I can see snow way over there, but I don't have to live with it, right? So I was going home. I looked at it as I got this weekend vacation every week, not I had to go do this thing in Chicago every week. So I worked with him for 2 years. That worked out really well. Again, some contract renewals, fun stuff. I'll tell you about McDonald's here before I get like that. So the crazy German decided he liked me well enough he wanted to hire me, right? He said, you know what, stop working with these guys. You need to come here. So, but the only caveat was, given the position I was going to get, and I report to the global CTO, you have to move to Chicago. So I thought, now I'm at that cusp again, right? Do I want to move to Chicago? That sort of thing for this company, right? To work with this company. Ultimately, I decided I would do that. The idea was I would work there 3 years at corporate and then springboard out to Europe or Asia and do an expat deal. That was the plan anyway. So McDonald's, who is McDonald's? Right? For those of you guys who don't know, we have almost 2 million people work in the McDonald's system. It's a lot of people. We're operating in 119 countries. That fluctuates a little bit, depending on some places that are called a country versus a territory, but 119. It's more than 35,000 restaurants that we have operate around the world, and 28 billion in revenue from a corporate size, right, from McDonald's. This is a key metric I think everybody that surprises me all the time. I don't know of another organization, even a government entity, that 70 million times a day puts a product in your hand that you can put in your body and consume it every single day. I don't know any. You know if somebody does that? Let me know. I mean, even governments do paper pushing. I mean, even if you look at Click and Ship, 70 million times a day, right? We give something to somebody. To me, that's pretty impressive. I think if you wanted, to me, when I saw numbers like that, I thought, solving world hunger isn't about logistics. It isn't about the amount of food that we have. It is only the will to do it. Only the will to do it, in my Joel's opinion. We could feed this entire planet and everybody on it if we had the will to do it. But anyway, when you think about the logistics that goes into making that happen, to put product all around the world to do that, we could solve world hunger if we wanted to. Another pictures of me, Goofy. Yes, that's Ronald McDonald, Grimace, Birdie over there. So I take this job at McDonald's, and the job at McDonald's, my first title was Senior Director of Innovation and Acceleration. One of those weird, yeah, right. Some of those like, what does that mean? So the idea was that at McDonald's, again, we talked about we're building things, and the crazy German, I keep referring to him, he was, if anything, a tour de force for change. I mean, this guy was willing to rip out anything that existed, didn't matter, put something new in and go with it. So I'm going on this whirlwind tour with him, but my job was to take his vision and make some reality out of it, right? Create some reality with his vision. And we did that. We did that with a number of systems. I was lucky enough to be where we opened up recently in Vietnam, opened up that market. I was lucky enough to be at that market opening, which really changed my perspective of a McDonald's. If you've never been to McDonald's outside of the US, especially in places like Asia, it's different. For instance, in China, they do weddings. Do weddings at McDonald's in China. I kid you not. Google it up. You'll see people out there, young people. In Vietnam, for instance, I went to Vietnam thinking, I've been to the Philippines, I've been to other places in Asia, and I was thinking it was going to be similar to that. It was not. It was an amazing surprise for me. 60% of the country is under the age of 30. They don't know what the Vietnam War is, or that's something their grandparents tell them about, right? It's something they have to learn about it in history and things like that, but they're not interested in it at all. When we went to the major opening, we had Yahoo there, we had Facebook there, and these people would come in droves to see this stuff. Very first day opening, 22,000 people came to that McDonald's, very first day. The next day, 22,000 people. The next day, we had 21,000 people. The next day, we had 20,000 people. One guy came through in a scooter, ordered 50 Big Macs. I kid you not. It's interesting. And it's the only drive-through in the entire country. First day, 8,000 scooters came through. And it's just, they embrace it. And my point is, they just embraced the whole concept, right? It was an amazing event to be at, entertainment and all this kind of fun stuff. The picture that you see on your right here, I'm speaking with, there's the handsome guy on the right is a highfalutin Gartner analyst kind of guy, and we're doing this talk, and it happens to be on Wall Street, right down from the famous Wall Street, the stock exchange, New York Stock Exchange. And I'm telling people about the technology we use and what we do for systems that enable that 70 million people a day thing to happen. And specifically, I'm talking about a technology we implemented that does updates to point of sale systems. So if you have a promo or something like that, price change or specials, things like that, we pull data out of those systems coming back to corporate for a number of things, and the systems that we put in place to manage that. We had to actually get with Microsoft and ask them to, back in the day, you used to buy software that came in a box and it had like compatibility and it had specs and things like that you could do with, and we were far exceeding what we were using for Microsoft for these particular tools. With Microsoft, it's a technology that monitors equipment as well as pushes packages of software out, so you can update software around the world. And there's a thing they have called a node to distribution point ratio. So you have a node, you push software to this thing, and then it stars out to those people, so you can, that sort of thing. And to make it work from a cost perspective, we were far exceeding the node to distribution point ratio and that sort of stuff. So we had Microsoft product engineers come and work with us, and they rewrote their code or software to support what McDonald's is doing so that we could do it at a price point that made sense to owner-operators to consume it. I don't know that it actually makes sense to you guys, but we thought it did from an IT perspective. From a cost perspective and what you pay to get that particular thing, we think it's pretty special in terms of what you do there. But those are the opportunities I got because I was, you connect the dots along the way. If you think about all the places I've been and connecting the dots on why I got to the next place. Remember I said earlier, I've not filled out a job application in a long time. It's because as you start your work career, more often than not, I'm not saying don't fill out job applications or don't pound the street and do what you want to do. You definitely need to do that. But think about the people you meet along the way. Every single person you meet, right? I don't want to sound too, Machiavellian here, but they have the potential to help you. Everyone, even the people you don't like. There's a lot of people I work with I don't like. A lot of them. And they taught me things that I know not to do that. I know not to do that. But you learn from them, right? It's learning, connecting, deliver for people, think about outcomes, and whatever you do, Do not think about, in Joel's opinion, balancing work and life. Find a way to integrate work and life that's meaningful to you. You will be a better employee. I think you'll be a better person. I think you'll be happier if you do that, again, in Joel's opinion. And that to me is where I don't think of my job as something I have to do. I want to do this. And if I didn't want to do it, I'll go do something else, right? It's a means to an end. I like, like the rest of you, I like having the latest iPhone or whatever it is I want to buy with money. But if you make it about just a means to an end, you'll miss these opportunities when they come up. You'll miss that call when somebody says, yeah, I want you to be the guy that goes and does this or the woman that does that. You miss out on it if you have the attitude of work is just that thing you do to get by, in my opinion anyway. With that, I think I've been gabbing long enough. So I asked you earlier, think about questions that you might have. Happy to share with you any experience. I have my mother in the audience, so I was leaving out, I specifically left out a few things on how we got where we are. Yes, sir.
How you doing? So what would you say is the best thing that's been working, the best experience you've had working for McDonald's or corporations?
The best experience I've working for McDonald's. So, well, I think the single most best experience I've had was certainly going to Vietnam, and that Vietnam opening was pretty special to see that happening. Just to watch kids eat a McDonald's French fry for the very first time is pretty cool. We take it for granted, but it's interesting when you watch them do it. But, that said, there was a project I worked on to do, if you don't know this, we do home delivery at McDonald's in a number of countries in Asia, and I think I'm going to test it out in New York, I think, pretty soon. But we do it in Asia, and I was part of that project to put the systems in. We built systems in a place called Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Got to go there, build that system out, and see how that works. And then they originally talked to me about that. They said, we're going to put this system in. We're probably going to do $200 million worth of business. Just put a system in enough to get it going. McDonald's is all about doing, they don't do big investments to see if it'll work, right? They do, let's test this, and then when it gains momentum, then it gets big. So in that instance, we did one, and it was about, we tried to gauge over $250 million worth of business. Today, on that exact same system, we do $1.2 billion worth of business. And it was cool to be a part of that, just to watch that happen and see that come to life. Because that was the first time, even though we worked on systems that touched the restaurant, that was the first time we worked, I was part of a system that was customer facing, revenue generating for the company. And so it was neat the people I got to work with, to make that happen. And by the way, I worked on that team. I didn't lead that team, but it was a fantastic experience. And that's the thing that drives me, to put stuff like that in place, to make that work. It was pretty neat. Yes?
What advice would you give to a college kid who's trying to transition from a job that has a wage to a career that has a salary? Trying to make that jump.
So you think about my experience. I had a job that paid a wage, and I started school. I was working at a restaurant, and that was my way of paying for my son going to school. Until I got through enough school that got me a job paying a wage, and then I dropped out of school because the wage was nicer than I could get a better apartment, that sort of stuff. If your question is how do you go from the wage job, the hourly job to the salary job, don't let salary jobs fool you. I would say that to you. It's not, an hourly wage isn't the worst thing in the world. If it's more money, it's more money. But think through what it really means to go to a job that you're no longer paid by the hour. Here's what happens when you're not paid by the hour. So I get a paycheck today, and on the paycheck it has this hourly rate, and the rate is basically a division of what I get paid divided by the number of hours that they pay me to work. So that becomes a goal. If I could only work 40 hours a week, then I would make that wage. The truth is I work 60, 65 hours a week, most weeks. So I don't actually make that hourly wage, right? So don't fall into the trap of a wage job is sort of the best thing out there. Think through what the opportunity is. What is the company you want to work for? What do they do? Does it align with what you want to do? All right? If it's more money, you need more money. I get it. I was a student. Get the money. But don't do anything. Don't take a job that's going to detract from you to finish your education. Right? I tell people all the time, I have nieces and nephews and things like that. It doesn't get easier. It's not easier to learn later. Your brain doesn't learn as much, and you're not as fast, and you're working, you have family responsibilities. It's never easier. So whatever you do, right, whatever job you take, get your education done first, right? Get it done and get it out of the way, and that'll accelerate. If I would have done that, I'd have been on I'd probably be further than I am today. is what I would say to you, right? So be careful about the trap of the professional job versus the job that pays you an hourly wage. Anybody else? Yes.
So you might think this is a dumb question, but so do you have, since you work at the corporate office, I know like big companies have cafeteria stuff. Do you guys have McDonald's inside there? Or do they give you like vouchers?
So let me, all right, great question. So there's a campus where I work, right? And in my particular building that I'm in, there is a cafe, but it is not a McDonald's. But in the corporate, we call the corporate office building, COB, there is a McDonald's. It's called the Arch. It's on the 3rd floor. It's right outside there's a test kitchen area. And it's called the Arch. Now, the interesting thing about the Arch is, and this is going to make it sound bad, but you know where they switched apple pies from fried to baked? You can still get them fried at the Arch. Still get a fried apple pie at the Arch, which is pretty neat. Yes, there is one inside the building. No, I'm sorry. So, second question. No. I have to pay for my McDonald's. I pay the same as you do no matter where I'm at. So if you and I are both in the corporate office building, we both pay the same, for the sandwich. Now, interestingly enough, what's that?
You'd buy lunch.
I would buy, yeah. If you come up there, I'll buy you lunch. But if you want to come to McDonald's, if anybody wants to come to Chicago, I'll throw this out there, right? Corporate office building is cool. Hamburg University is interesting. Ray Kroc's old desk and all that. Where you want to go is this place called the Innovation Center. And the Innovation Center is a warehouse. In the warehouse are millions of Happy Meal toys. I've been told, again, I could be wrong, that McDonald's is the largest toy distributor in the world, not Walmart. Right? If you think about Happy Meal toys and things like that. We're also the largest seller of salad in the world, the largest seller of chicken in the world, something like 5 times what KFC does, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. At any rate, the Innovation Center has within, there's a sign on the road, I kid you, it's not probably bigger than this, and it says Innovation Center. You go to this warehouse, because in a corner of the warehouse, they carved out this area, and they call it the Innovation Center. And inside that Innovation Center, they have the ability to build out maximum capacity of 3 restaurants inside the Innovation Center. And what they do is they'll build out a restaurant, and they'll test things, like, we want to test a new frappe machine or something like that. But they also, what they'll do is they'll go to a country like Italy, for instance, and they'll say, we're going to set this kitchen up like a kitchen in Italy, and we're going to run all Italy's stuff. And they'll take a restaurant day sales for an entire day, bring it to the Innovation Center, and rerun that sales as if people were actually there ordering the food. So they make all the food. So if you work at the Innovation Center, if you go by the Innovation Center, it's all free. We used to refer to it as dumpster diving. So what happens is they have real crew making the food, and they have people there with blue T-shirts on usually, like actors, and they have a mock drive-through and whatever, and they're the people that go get the food at the front counter. So the order's been placed, they get the food at the front counter on a tray like you would, they walk it over to this table, and they set it down, and there's 3 or 4 people standing there, and they check the order for accuracy. Does the order match what's on the thing? And they used to just throw it away. Now they separate out the compostable stuff, whatever recycling thing. But if you're there at that moment and that food hits that table, and before they want to throw it away, it's yours. You can have it. You can have as much as you want, right? So those are interesting times. I recently took some children there, and my deal with them is, oh my God, I have all the French fries I want. I said, listen, you can have all you want. However, you can only have one at a time. So for instance, you can't go there. They were going to go there and scarf up burgers, like this, go. So you can get a burger, and go back, eat, and then come back and get another one. You can do it all day if you want to, right? The other rule is you can't take any food out of there. If you come to Chicago, and you want to do something really cool, we want to go to the Innovation Center, and you want to go there when they have a country that's got something other than the U.S., like France or Italy or Vietnam or something like that, when they have different food in those locations. It's pretty cool. And the innovations that come out of there are pretty neat. I mean, in terms of operations, equipment, things like that. Invention of in fact, I had an admin working for me, and her dad invented the fry scoop, the thing that scoops up and puts the fries in the bag. Her dad invented that. Proved to be problematic for me, because if your admin's father invented the fry scoop, she's pretty much going to get a passing grade, right? On whatever she does. But anyway, she's a sweet lady. Anybody else?
Joel, somebody asked a question.
Yes.
And they said, how do you move from a wage to a salary person?
Mm-hmm.
So we've been doing this. Jack's been doing it 42 years. I've been doing it 20-something years. Show up every day. Ask a lot of questions. Be the best guy on the ship or girl. Where do you want to be in 5 years? Don't think about the salary. So when you get out of school and you have a college degree, and I got a graduate school, and I had answers to questions unasked, just like most people. Mm-hmm. Ask questions, learn a lot. McDonald's is probably, in our operation, if you're a college student, come to work with us. See what you like to do. It's something different every day. The pace is fast. If you're in the fast food world, it is the best. It's great to work for the best brand in the world. Nobody in this town pays more than Jack Pizzo in the food business. So you learn. We've got every manager we have started in the crew, every supervisor we have started in the crew. We've got owner-operators who came through, and so there's a lot of opportunities there, and what you have to look past is, it's not cool to work at McDonald's, but that's not the end, that's the beginning. So it may not be cool to start out and work there, but it gets pretty cool when you start earning money or when you start having these financial rewards that are unheard of if you're working in a cubicle somewhere as an analyst for a company. So, but it keeps you working with young people. It gives you opportunities that are unbounded. You can go to work in different countries. You can work in different stores. So the opportunities are there. And you know, there's people that say, well, what about a minimum wage of $15 at McDonald's? You don't start at $15. McDonald's is not the end-all job in the start. It's where you end up in the end. So, you know, if you're a manager who makes 60, 70, 80, whatever that number is, or if you work and you go to work for the corporation. So the opportunities are there. So don't look at, I'm going to start up as a guy making $20,000 at a McDonald's. Look at, where do I want to be in 5 years? You know, do I want to work for the corporation? What I want to do? But don't be put off by the starting point, because everybody, including Jack Pizzo, started in the crew.
Yeah.
And they say, Jack, we're going to let you give us this money. At 18% interest was the loan rate back then, so he got in at the right time.
Was that Carter wasn't president?
You're going to move from where you live in St. Louis to some little town in Dublin, Georgia, and you're going to start over, and you're going to work for a while, and you're going to be broke. But at the end of the day, it's a great opportunity. So what my point is, don't look at the job as a wage job or salary job. Look at the job as, where can you be in 10 years, where can you be in 20 years, because Bill, when you were working in Southern California, Oak Brook, Illinois was not on your radar screen.
No,
but
not at all.
Today, it is a great organization. If you ask Wall Street analysts, they would say if you could invest in any business today and get the most return ROI,
it's true.
you would still invest in McDonald's. So,
and we got good press rating. We're doing good comps. So,
it's a great operation.
so that's great advice. And I'll add to that. There are a number of people in corporate that all have crew stories, all started as crew that work at corporate today. I have a couple of directors that work for me today that worked their way through school working at McDonald's, right? And then ended up with a corporate job and doing something totally different, you know, technology or something like that, as well as people that run parts of our business all spent time as crew. And another little fact is, if you get a job at McDonald's corporate, you have to go work in the restaurant at least 2 days. Most of us look forward to it. Go spend 2 days in a restaurant, and we think we know what we're doing. We go in there. Of course, the guys at the restaurant hate that. Right? The corporate guys come along because you're slower than the crew. You don't know what you're doing. I can remember the first day I got there, they put me on buns. I said, "Oh, you have a lot of confidence in me." You know, but I'm doing the bun thing, and I work my way all the way to the drive-through backup person. But I'll tell you, here's what I'll tell you. I'll do a little caveat to what you were just told. You know, definitely the advice around, think of things in terms of opportunity, not in terms of how you get paid, right? We all care about how much you get paid, but how you get paid should be less of a concern than the opportunity that's afforded to you. And do think about what it means for you, you know, going forward in the future. In places like Sweden, if you spend time in a McDonald's working in crew as a crew person, you get all kinds of college credit in Sweden for personal relations and customer management and all that sort of stuff, problem resolution credit in Swedish universities just for working at a McDonald's and that sort of stuff. So it's an interesting point that you're making. It is thinking about where you want to go in a number of years and not where you are with respect to wage or salary. And I'll tell you, I will say this much though, the shift supervisor job at McDonald's is probably the hardest job in all of McDonald's. I don't think our CEO is Steve Easterbrook, and his job isn't as hard, I think, as the shift supervisor job. That job, I was just watching that guy work that when I was there, and I'm thinking, man, there's a lot drawing on his attention. There's a lot in busy times, a lot of demand from that person. And my thought was the whole time, how can I bring technology to this store to make that guy's job easier, right, in terms of what he's got to deal with? But it's certainly exciting, no doubt.
Let me just add this. One of the problems with our turnover is that we get good people, but when we get them, everybody wants to hire them.
Yeah.
So if you're a doctor or a dentist or something, and you need a new receptionist, for instance, you go into McDonald's and find the cutest girl that you can find and offer her a job. And
So there you go.
This happens, and
Yeah.
I'll go anywhere and they'll say, oh yeah, I used to work for you. And because it's a start. And, you know, they get a chance to work, the pace is fast, and they get to be part of a team. And it's really a fun type of thing. It really is fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, the lunch hour mantra is panic with dignity.
I remember that.
You just have to.
I remember that. I think there was somebody a question in the back. But yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I just wanted to note, because you were saying you were speaking with the crazy German, and you liked him, and you ended up speaking longer than you initially thought you were going to. What made him like you, and what value did you feel like you were going to add to the company that made you change your mind about joining?
Well, one is I could keep up with him. That was the first thing. My mother's in the room, but so his mantra was work hard, party hard, work hard. I mean, the man's a machine. I mean, we went out one time in Vienna till something like 4:30 in the morning. We had a flight at 6 o'clock. We had to be in the hotel lobby to go out. And I come down and I barely am on time to meet him, and my colleague wasn't there and all this sort of stuff. And he's standing there, suited up, and he's like the night never happened, right? He said, airplanes are for sleeping. The ground is for walking. So I could keep up with him, right, for a while, and sort of just his style of being direct didn't offend me. I know a lot of people took it too abrupt. If he didn't like what you were doing, he would just flat out tell you in colorful language, right? I won't use it here, but he would say, you're doing a lousy job. You're not good. Are you an idiot, right? Things that HR would freak out about, right? Which didn't bother me. I mean, he wouldn't say to me directly like, you're an idiot. He would say things like, am I surrounded by idiots, right? Does nobody understand what I'm saying? Is my accent that bad? So you just have to be able to deal with that, right? And I could deal with that. I became a little bit of his handler, if you will, and giving him advice on how to work and survive in corporate America versus what he could say in Germany. For instance, if you walk around in Germany and say, you don't get this done, I'm firing you. Well, you really can't fire them. They know that. In the U.S., you can. And so you can't say that, right? You can't say to someone, because they'll freak out, right? They'll leave that day. I mean, it doesn't help you get the outcome you want, which is not to firing somebody is the worst outcome you can possibly have after investing time in an employee. It's not that it's not inevitable, but it is the worst outcome you can possibly have. You're so much better off getting that person if you can turn them, get them to contribute, get them to do what you want to do. I mean, outside of issues that are non-fixable, you're not a counselor, right? But that's why I aligned with him. I got people that he couldn't relate to deliver on the vision that he wanted. So turn people that he thought were zeros into heroes. You do that for a boss, that goes a long way. A long way. I'm sorry, yes.
So, you were expert at your field. So, then you move up in your career and obviously went more towards the business side of things.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's, experts in organizations. The things have changed in the last 10 years. Like, there is a tendency that people actually, being experts, they tend to be, say, go more towards the business side of things to actually move up to the career. But there's, people who are passionate about technology,
yes,
and they want to be expert. And there's, places where the experts actually get paid well, and there is a room for improvement. But still, it's not every organization does that. So, what would be your suggestion for the people who are actually passionate about technology? Should they be sticking with what they are doing and what they love, or should they be actually, do something else to actually, move? In order to move up to their career, they should be actually looking more of the business side of things.
So here's what I'd tell you. Do what you love. If you love technology, do that. What I would add to it, though, is understand how what you love impacts the people and business around you. If you can make the connection between your passion and what you love. We have really smart people that are high up in the organization that are engineering degrees and all different kind of technology experts, right? We have a chief digital officer, for example, that we just took from Amazon, who rolled out Kindle Fire, is now the CDO for McDonald's, right? Atif Rafiq. And he's an expert, right, in doing things. But what he's been able to do is figure out how to get his passion for technology, right, and understand how that gets monetized in the market. So so I would say to you, you're passionate about a particular technology. Maybe you want to write an app. Maybe you want to do something, right? Do it, right? Take the chance and do it. But the more you can understand the marketplace you're going to function in, whether it's your own company and your division or whether it's out with customers, right? The more fruitful, I will say, that will be. It doesn't, we've all heard of the starving artist, right? There's a reason they're starving. They're passionate about what they do, but it may not be that the market's absorbing what they do. So if you can do both, you're going to get both sides of that, right? The reward side of that as well. But I would never stop doing what you love doing. I wouldn't trade, oh my God, I want to be an accountant, no offense to accountants, for being a technologist, right? When I took accounting because I had to, right? To get through accounting was, I took it and it was good to go, and finance and all that kind of stuff, I understand it, but it's not what I'm passionate about. I'm passionate about enabling technology to drive some capability, right? I'm writing mobile apps today. My team is writing mobile apps today. They're going to make working inside the company easier. We're hoping to write stuff to make crew easier. My vision one day is you walking around in crew, you're that shift manager, and you've got a watch or some device on, whatever it might be, it's expensive, and you just tap it and say, shake machines down and keep moving. And because I know who you are, where you are, what you're doing, I don't have to have you stop and open a ticket or call somebody. You just keep going, right? Because I want you interacting with it. That drives me. So it's not about getting away from what you love. Never do that, right? Stick with your technology. You can go far. You can go high in an organization as a technologist. Don't get me wrong, but that will be limited to your ability to implement that for the benefit of others. If you can figure that out, you'll be wildly successful.
So it's not should be limited within an organization where the career growth is actually slow. I mean, do you recommend people to actually step out and change places?
Well, here's what I'd tell you: the higher up you want to go, the more well-rounded you have to be. We call it punching your ticket. So you see me. I've worked in healthcare now, a little insurance. I've done global distribution. Now I'm in what we call quick service restaurant or retail. So the more experience you get doing those things, the more value you have to offer the next organization you might want to be part of, or your current organization.